let's convene the meeting for January 8th, 2019 of the Radnor Township Planning Commission, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we get started, I just want to clarify that the only item on the agenda is the ordinance amendment proposal. We are not here to deal with anything else, Wawa or any other items which have been here in the past and maybe here in the future. So with that, let's review the minutes of the meeting.
I think we got to do reorganization first, Mr. Chair.
Say that again?
He wants to do reorganization first.
You want to do reorganization? Okay. I can point out that Elizabeth Springer has been reappointed for another 4-year term on the Planning Commission, as has Charlie Falcone. No, you've missed that meeting. It's 4 years, yeah. There's also a new appointment. Regina Madurek had to resign because she took another position with the Federal Highway Planning Commission out in Harrisburg. So we're going to miss her because she's made a big contribution to our proceedings. And in her place will be Lane Vines. He's appointed to a 4-year term. Mr. Vines is an attorney with a firm down in Philadelphia. And he can't make it tonight, but he'll be at the next meeting, I understand. Okay. So I think that takes care of that aspect of tonight's agenda. And the minutes. Are there any changes, additions, corrections to be made to the minutes of
Mr. President, I think we should do confirm. We should confirm the president and the chair and vice chair.
Thank you for reminding me. Okay, I left that part out. Do we do that by a motion? Yes. Okay. Can I have a motion?
We confirm chair and vice chair, Mr. Lord.
Pardon me?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. What do we? It should be verbiage.
Sorry, I think you should do it separate.
Okay.
Okay. So let's start again.
I move that we make John Lord the chair of the Planning Commission for the year 2019.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so that's passed, that I'll be the chairman for a year. And next would be the vice chairman. Motion?
Do that one.
I make a motion that Skip Kunda continue as vice chair of the Planning Commission for 2019.
I second.
Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so Skip is confirmed as vice chair for next year. Now, the minutes. Any changes, corrections, alterations to the minutes from our December 11th, 2018 meeting? Do I have a motion?
I move we accept the minute as presented.
Second by anybody?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved as presented. The next item on the agenda, item number 3, is an ordinance amendment of Radnor Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, amending Chapter 280, zoning, Article 15, PLO Planned Laboratory District, Section 280-63, by eliminating certain approved uses in the PLO Planned Laboratory-Office District. Everybody has in front of them the proposed amendment. And I also believe part of the package was a report dated December 19th, 2018 from Stephen Norsini, our Radnor Township engineer. He notes that should this be passed or approved ultimately by the Board of Directors, there would have to be some corrections made, or I guess that's maybe not the correct term, but some adjustments made to several other provisions of the code. And I don't think we really need to get into that at this particular moment. It's more of a technical thing that we can deal with at some later point in time if necessary. Before the board discusses the proposed amendment, is there any public comment? There appears not to be any public comment. Is there any comment or discussion by the board regarding the proposed? Well, let's start with the board first.
The only thing I said, if I remember correctly from the discussions we had with this, one of the things that we did was limit the uses of medical buildings and dentist operations within this, so that we would, and I think the ordinance says that there's only going to be a certain percentage of medical office, and I think doing away with them would not be a good thing, although that's my personal opinion. You know, it's there and it should remain as part, because it is a minor part of the PLO.
Can I just ask a question? Why are we addressing this now versus a year or 2 years down the road when we know what the traffic impact is really going to be at the end of the day with Penn Medicine? This is all about, as I understand it, just basically eliminating traffic, eliminating the number of cars at the new proposed development, either the Ride and Racket Club, hypothetically, or elsewhere within the PLO district. So, but why wouldn't we take a look at what King of Prussia Road, what Lancaster Avenue, what Radnor Chester Road is going to be like 2 years or 3 years down the road once Penn Med is up and running, and then we can make an adjustment. Because the way I read this right now, if we agree to eliminate these uses of, forgive me,
Medical, dental, and sales.
of medical, dental, professional, and sales, we're sort of like limiting the potential developments further down the road. So just taking a next step. What happens if the suburban commercial real estate market tanks for traditional office purposes, and yet, you know, those sites want to be further developed out, and they do have some sort of other purpose other than the standard office? Why would we limit ourselves right now? Obviously, they could probably propose the change in the future, but why wouldn't we basically address this when we have real proof, we have real empirical data we can look at what the traffic implications are going to be?
Well, let me answer the first part of your question. It's here because it's here before us, because as part of the municipality's planning code, when an amendment like this is proposed to this ordinance, it has to first be reviewed not just by the Planning Commission, the Radnor Planning Commission, but also the Delaware Valley Planning Commission before it can go before the commissioners for final approval. So that's one of the reasons. That's the reason why it's here. The reasons that you've suggested are certainly practical reasons, and I think valid reasons, but and that's something that we can talk about as to whether or not we've actually heard something or received sufficient information to cause us to reverse what we recommended about a year or so ago to the Board of Commissioners, in which the commissioners ultimately approved in creating or promulgating the ordinance in question. And that's really a question that we don't have to get into the weeds with determining, well, maybe we would get to know this or we would learn that or whatever, but we don't have anything in front of us, at least this is my feelings, that would suggest that we missed something or that there was some technical flaw that requires us to redo this thing or revisit it. Nothing like that has transpired. So that's where we are. That's where we find ourselves.
Does Is Penn required to do a post-development traffic study?
No.
No, I don't believe that they are required to do a post study. You know,
This
if they
doesn't
make,
affect Penn at all, right? I mean,
If-
Penn, even if it got passed, would still be legal non-conforming. You can't, Penn's issue is done. It's not even an issue in this. Because if they did change the ordinance, anyone that's there now, which are, I think, two properties are, right, the old Penn and the new Penn, they would be legal, in other words, they would be legal non-conforming. If somebody were to rent or buy Penn space and put medical back in there again, they could do that because I think they'd be legal non-conforming, correct, Will? Yes. So, you know, so the only one this would affect is the other 5 remaining properties. I think there's 7 properties. So it would only affect 5 properties of the 7 properties that the PLO is under. So it's, and again, we had hours and months, and I mean months and months of traffic studies and other miscellaneous reports from our staff as well as both sides' staff as to traffic impact. This thing really, if you happen to have watched the meeting with Commissioner Booker, his thing was about parking and changing the parking. You know, it has nothing, he wasn't really talking about traffic other than people hitting the bridge, but he was more concerned about the parking. You know, I just think that this horse has been beat so long and so much, it's just, I just don't know if we want to get back into this
Yeah,
again.
no.
I just think it's not something that we spend a lot of hours and a lot of time and effort, our effort and energy as well as other people's. That's my opinion.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time for a year before I showed up, so this is my 3rd year, so I know how much time you must have spent because we spent a lot of time on it after I showed up. But I think to the point about there was a tremendous amount of work, and looking at this holistically is very important. I don't think it's a good precedent to set the look at striking one-liners out of codes. I think it's a very kind of a bad path to be heading down, and because that it kind of leaves it up to likes and dislikes and a bit of a personal take on each code. So I find it very difficult. But also to go to all that traffic study, it would be great if we could, if they did, but I guess they're not required to do a post-development traffic study to kind of make sure that the original numbers were kind of fall in line with actual practice. So,
I'm sure somebody will once they're up and running.
yeah.
Amy, the DVRPC does, I think, almost yearly traffic studies, and King of Prussia Road's always on their studies.
yeah, they don't, it's not annually. They usually have a 3-year cycle, and they obtain traffic counts for it.
Right.
So, and then also I did want to add, somebody was asking if there would be a post-construction study performed. There wouldn't be, but because there's new signal coming in and there's a new signal system coming in, there would be a requirement to take traffic counts just to make sure that the signals are timed adequately afterwards.
But as well as what Charlie said, is that the next development within the PLO, they're going to have to go through this whole process all over again, so.
I personally don't like approving non-conforming uses. I don't like that precedent at all. I think that takes us down a slippery slope that includes spot zoning and all sorts of messy stuff.
You're not talking about approving a non-conforming use, you mean creating a non-conforming use.
Right.
Right. Well, since I already have snuck in and grabbed the floor, I don't think that we should ban this particular use. I don't believe we ban it in any zoning classification. I think you can have a dentist office in an R2 district and all that too, at least in our township. It's not like you were putting in a pizza place in an R2 or something like that. So that there's a perceived benefit to having
medical dental offices, and to pick the PLO as the only place where you can have it doesn't make sense to me, even on a transportation basis. You're in near the heavy rail, the light rail, the blue route, and the density is permitted in the PLO that isn't permitted in other zoning. So it's sort of like where maybe it should be in the restricted way that we have in the new PLO ordinance. So I wouldn't change the ordinance. I would not vote to approve this.
We had spent a lot of time talking about what percentages, and we specifically reduced the second tier of them for the traffic more than we did the first tier. So I feel strongly that we should leave it alone, and if we have to reevaluate, we'll have an opportunity to do that, but I hate to try and approve a non-conforming use as well. So I'm in agreement we should leave it alone.
Any other comment?
I move that we reject the acceptance of the amended ordinance,
The proposed amendment.
proposed amendment, zoning ordinance.
Second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So it appear that 7 voted against it, so the recommendation to the Board of Commissioners is that the amendment not be put into effect. Any old business?
Yes, I'd like to recommend that there's a memorandum dated March 3rd, 2017, from Peter Nelson and John Rice to the Planning Commission and to staff that deals with recommendations that we did make at that time to the Board of Commissioners. It's my recollection that no action was taken on those recommendations. I'd like to make a motion that we send this memorandum as part of tonight's record to the BOC and ask them again to take a position, yay or nay, on these recommendations. And specifically their medical office parking and clarification of parking garage in the PLO. The medical office parking is the entire code, though. It's not just PLO. So that's my
second?
motion is to put that memo in the record. And
I second that.
All in favor?
aye.
I'm not sure.
Opposed?
I abstain.
Okay, so we have,
I have to figure that one out. That one, we stopped on the first one and then we come back and change it on the second one. That doesn't make sense to me. But that's okay. I'm all right. I abstain, so I'm not neither for nor against. I have to think about that to make a decision on that.
It's just that we did recommend it, a majority of us, maybe not you, you might have recused or whatever.
I probably didn't vote on it.
Yeah.
Because back then it probably kind of affected, yeah.
But the majority of us,
abstain. I'm neither for nor against it. I just abstain.
majority of us recommended it once before. My motion is that, in effect, to recommend it once again.
I'm questioning you. I'm just,
no. So what was the count? There's one abstention,
6-4 and 1 abstention.
6-4 and 1 abstention to attach the March 3rd, 2017 memorandum from Peter Nelson and John Rice to the Radnor Planning Commission and send it upstairs to the Board of Commissioners for their consideration, or reconsideration, as the case may be. Any new business? There being no new business, it appears that we're adjourned. Thank you.
Who was up?